I enjoy the kinds of issues that make me float, meaning things I haven't been able to settle on and firmly plant my feet on what position I take in their regard. These things challenge me to think them over on my own and to seek out other people's positions on them to help me decide where my feet should land. One such issue I haven't spoken on much is the concept of how adults are disciplined and or punished for breaking the law. One of my favorite Benjamin Franklin aphorisms is, "Dost thou love life? Then do not squander time, for that's the stuff life is made of." My agreement with Franklin on this issue leads me to consider a life prison sentence to possibly be the second worst penalty available, with the death penalty being the worst. This sentence is issued when society has deemed people as being unworthy of the freedom to choose how they can live their lives based on their abuse of that initial right. Stripping them of that right is usually done to protect the society from such people rather than in an effort to rehabilitate them. We have effectively given up on those people and decided it's better to throw them behind bars for the rest of their lives so their victims, families thereof, and surrounding society can feel good to see that apparent justice has been served. I don't consider extreme, inhumane corporal punishment to be any better as a technique for rehabilitation, but given the choice between that and spending the rest of my life confined to a prison cell, I'd quickly take the ferocious beating. It does seem that there will always exist some vein of people who, for whatever unfortunate combination of genetics and circumstances have led them to becoming so, are simply too dangerous to function in a civil society and do need to be locked away. I can't think of a better solution for such people, and it breaks my heart to consider that circumstances beyond their control, or even a few horrible choices on the part of otherwise harmless people, can rob such people of their entire life's time. As severe as a life sentence is, it's somewhat more disturbing to consider how shorter-term prison sentences are doled out. By what method do we as a society determine how long adults have to stand in the corner before learning the lessons to not commit whatever crimes we didn't want them to? In May of 2011, for example, a man was sentenced to 10 years in prison for child sex trafficking with 20 years of supervision after his release. The link to that story is below. How was it determined that 10 years was the appropriate amount of time for his punishment? Would he understand how much society disagrees with his decision any less than he would if he had been incarcerated for 9 years? How do we determine that 11 plus years would have been too harsh? How is it determined that he only needs 20 years of supervision after his release and not a lifetime? Is it assumed that 20 years after his 10-year sentence he might still commit the crime, but by the 21st year he's learned his lesson? Or are these seemingly arbitrary numbers more intended to deter those who aren't yet convicted than they are to rehabilitate those who have been? Is it possible that we dole out such sentences primarily as a threat to would-be criminals who think 9 years might be worth the risk, but 10 is just too much? I honestly don't know the answers to these kind of things. I don't know how right it is to force a man to live his life in a cage because of what might have been one bad decision or due to conditions beyond his control during his childhood development. I don't know if a better solution is needed and hasn't been invented yet, if it's needed and can't be invented, or if it isn't needed at all. I don't know exactly what the primary roles of short-term prison sentences are, or if they're really effective for deterring or rehabilitating. I know some sentences do involve rehab programs along with their caging, but I also have a family member who went through jail, prison, and rehab but still hasn't shaken the tendency to commit the same crimes which got him locked up and endanger himself and others. What do you think?